Production of Kansas City Week in Review is made possible through the generous support of Dave and Jamie Cummings, Smithfield Foods, Haas and Wilkerson Insurance, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Confused yet? A second bid surfaces for a new look KCI. Blue Cross Kansas City making national news as it announces it's pulling out of Obamacare. Big comings and goings in higher education all in 1 week. Schlitterbahn now open for the season, why it's most notorious as traction is still there. Plus, the latest in Kansas and Missouri politics straight ahead. Welcome everyone, I'm Nick Haynes. We're launching into a Memorial Day holiday weekend, but it comes after a non-stop news week here in our metro. Here to make sense of it all from the Kansas City Star, Steve Vockrodt. The host of Up to Date on KCUR-FM, Steve Kraske. From the Star editorial board, Dave Helling. And reporting for The Pitch and Kansas City's NPR affiliate KCUR, Barbara Shelley. Now remember last week the big local story was the announcement that Burns & McDonnell would privately build and fund a new single terminal at KCI. Well, this week, the nation's largest airport design firm says they want in. We'll get to that in just a moment. But first, this was the week the public finally got their say on the airport. What did they tell city leaders? Here's a snapshot of sentiment from this week's first public hearing.
Anytime I see something rushed and jammed through in the dark at night very quickly without a lot of input or a lot of study, particularly with my city government, it raises massive red flags.
It's crumbling, which is an embarrassment.
We have probably the most convenient terminal anywhere for the size of our airport.
We're rushing this through just like we did the streetcar.
I'm the political director for the Carpenters Regional Council, and we are in full support of this proposal. There's a lot of people that can say no. The city wasn't built on no. It was built on yes.
Dave Helling, you were there for these hearings. Does the public, does the city even care about what the public has to say at this point in time, or is this just window dressing at this moment in time?
Ultimately, Nick, they will care because the voters will have the final say on whatever is finally cooked up on this deal. So the public's involvement is important. You know, whether any one comment at a hearing like this can change the direction of the conversation is probably unlikely. In general, the people who wear ties, like the Burns and Mac proposal, the Chamber of Commerce, former members of the council, people who wear, you know, tennis shirts aren't quite as enthusiastic about it, which is another way to say the people, just sort of common people, some of whom still believe that the current three-terminal horseshoe configuration is a good thing. Now, the KCI decision getting muddied this week as the nation's largest airport design firm, LA-based AECOM, notifying the city they want to be considered for the $1 billion project. What's been the city's response to that, Steve Vockrodt?
City's response has been a little mixed. So the mayor said that he wanted to take, or the city wanted to take 24 hours to analyze this proposal that was unsolicited. And so we'll see by the end of today, perhaps, what they come up with and what their view is going to be on that. The city manager had suggested that, you know, this proposal was too late, although there was, let's be clear with the viewers, there was never any sort of request for proposals, request for qualifications. There was no deadline for any of this stuff. So I'm not really sure where the too late thing comes from. There were some city council members who had expressed some concerns about, you know, is this proposal from this LA-based firm asking to privatize not only the financing, construction, but also the maintenance and operations. And the city has been very adamant that they don't want that. They want to be able to retain the operation of the airport. Although I will point out that the letter that was sent to the city does not commit to doing the maintenance and operations. It mentioned that as a possibility, but said we'd be interested in a public-private partnership or otherwise, but we want to be involved in some competitive bidding or competitive process for this this project.
Steve, you know, this strikes me as such an interesting pivot point now for the city, Nick, as it contemplates whether pushing ahead with this proposal from Burns and Mac or whether it's going to slow down and solicit bids from other potential airport developers out there. There are lots of them around the country. We found out at the newspaper that any number of them might be interested in throwing their hat in the ring considering to take a run at building a new single terminal up there. And I think the city and its leaders really need to be careful here as they navigate the next few weeks. If they get blamed here for rushing and doing things in the dark of night, as the one resident said in your video there, that will be a big political problem for them.
Now, there was another story this week also, Barbara, the Kansas City Star reporting how Burns and McDonnell had been a very generous contributor to almost every member of the city council, including the mayor, including at a fundraiser where 259 Burns and McDonnell employees contributed more than $37,000 to the mayor. And there's been the suggestion, of course, is that generosity that has given Burns and McDonnell then this exclusivity at this point on this bid. Is that fair?
Well, to me, no. That fundraiser and that number of employees that showed up, that's just a fraction. Burns and McDonnell is a big company, and they don't only contribute to the mayor. They contribute to politicians in Kansas, politicians in Missouri. That's what they do. They're a major engineering firm, and they spread a lot of money around this area. And I think they have. It's not just that they give money. They're deeply embedded in City Hall and the civic community, very activist firm, and I think that's part of it. But to the insinuation that they're trying to buy the mayor with this, I think that's overstated.
Dave, I think Barb's right about that, but I would also say that this is an extraordinarily important moment for Sly James. Sly James is really the author of this entire deal with Burns and Mack. The council was basically excluded, with the exception maybe of Councilwoman Jolie Justice, but by and large, the city council, some role for the city manager, but this is Sly James' deal. If the public becomes convinced that Sly James is the one who, in essence, cuts out any competition to Burns and Mack, then I think not only will he be in whatever political trouble he can still face, but the vote itself in November will be in jeopardy. Nick, this is exactly what you want. You want other companies to compete for your business. That's how public government works, so you can get the best value for taxpayers or people who fly at the airport. And to the extent that the mayor is seen as someone who obstructs that, I think that's enormously problematic for him going forward, and that's why it's such an important moment for him in my view.
Yeah, my guess is that the mayor's urgency in this is that he wants to get it done. He wants to get this underway during his term, and it's not so much that, he got campaign contributions from Burns and McDonnell. It's that they stepped up, he likes them, let's do this.
We can give Burns and Mack credit for stepping forward here. There's no reason not to at this point. But the mayor's point that his call for the business community to step forward a year ago, Burns and Mack was the only developer to do so. That really is disingenuous, because there was, as Steve said, there was no formal proposal, no formal solicitation of proposals out there. That's what's missing here, and now other companies are beginning to express interest, and that's, we suggest in the Kansas City Star's editorial board, the council needs to look at that.
Now, while the issue of the airport still divides Kansas City, was there at least public consensus over another decision made by the city council this week, Kansas City agreeing to pay for the installation of 7 to 10 security cameras along the Indian Creek Trail as police continue to investigate 4 unsolved murders in that area. The latest victim, the co-owner of the Coach's Bar and Grill, Mike Darby, who was laid to rest this week. I'm assuming no one was complaining about the expenditure of city money on this, or were there some people complaining why there aren't cameras in other murder hotspots? Steve?
Well, the thing is, there may be cameras in other murder hotspots that we don't know about. If you take a walk down the street, and if you really want to look around at your surroundings, you will find all kinds of surveillance around a lot of parts of the city. So I don't know. I didn't really hear any outcry about this particular expenditure. And if there's a pattern of violence going on in a particular area, it might behoove the city to at least take some steps to look into that.
Well, let's be clear here. The city has expended enormous resources into crime hotspots in this community by flooding those zones with more police officers and other agencies paying attention as well. So let there be no doubt here, these murder hotspots have not been overlooked.
In other news this week, Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas City announcing it will exit the Obamacare health insurance exchange next year. It's a decision that affects about 67,000 Missourians, plus many in Johnson and Wyandotte counties in Kansas. It's a story that's also making national news.
In recent hours, Blue Cross and Blue Shield, one of our biggest health insurance companies, has basically said that they're pulling out of Kansas, Missouri. This is, I think we can now officially declare Obamacare in the intensive care unit.
The Trump administration has done everything they possibly can to undermine the Affordable Care Act.
The reason that Blue Cross and Blue Shield is pulling out of the market is because of $100 million of losses they had in the last 2 years.
Okay, let's look at what this decision means and what it doesn't mean. Firstly, this only affects those men and women in our metro who access Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas City as part of the Affordable Care Act health exchange, right? This doesn't affect those people who are getting a Blue Cross and Blue Shield coverage, for instance, in their workplace, Barbara.
That's right, only the sliver of people on the exchange.
Okay, so what are the implications of this for this metropolitan area at this point in time then, Steve?
Well, they're dramatic. I mean, we have a number of thousands of folks in the metro area now who need to go scrambling for health coverage. You're going to see a rise in the number of uninsured, more pressure on hospital emergency rooms, the Truman Medical Center to step in and provide this kind of care, Nick. It's not a good day for a lot of people.
Now, Kansas does already have another insurance provider in place, and that's a Minnesota-based company, but they've already capped the number of people who can be enrolled in that program to just 10,000. That's not going to be enough for all of the people who are currently enrolled in the Affordable Care Act in Johnson and Wyandotte County, Steve.
No, not even close. And my understanding is that the interest in a program like that is about 3 times more than the capacity that they have or that they've set to handle. And then on the Missouri side, there's also Cigna, but Cigna has been somewhat non-committal about what they're going to do.
You know, there could be more insurers that come into both these markets. We'll know more by midsummer. But this is also something that the state legislatures could do something about if they wanted to. You know, Missouri just put its whole Medicaid program under managed care. You know, Nevada has said if you want to do that and run our Medicaid program, you got to be in the exchanges as well. You know, maybe we'll see our governor call a special session to help these people that are going to lose their health insurance.
Yeah, can I just quickly say this, Nick? There will be stories coming out in the weeks ahead that the decision by Blue Cross and Blue Shield to pull out of the individual market on the exchange may have had a political component as well as a financial component, that it wasn't done just for financial reasons. The political component is that a lot of people want to see the Affordable Care Act collapse. A lot of Republicans do. That will then make their case easier for the health care reform proposal that's now passed the House and a different version working its way through the Senate.
Well, let's take a little bit further look at that, because there's been lots of concern, of course, about this. There have been hundreds of people demonstrating outside the district office of Kansas Congressman Kevin Yoder, who recently voted to repeal Obamacare and replace it with what is known as the American Health Care Act. His argument has been that Obamacare is collapsing. Insurers are pulling out in many parts of the country, leaving people with no option. So does this decision by Blue Cross Blue Shield validate Yoder's argument,
I think, again, that's the point, really, that the decision not only here but in other states, the insurers are at a critical time because they have to start planning for 2018, and there's great uncertainty as to whether the Congress and the White House will support payments that have been made under the ACA to the insurers to cover these poorer, sicker clients on the exchanges. And so you're seeing stories like this pop up all over the country. But again, I do think it comes at a time when the Congress is considering an overhaul, and it sends a message, as we saw on CNN, and we're talking about it here, that kind of thing. The ACA needs repair. No one doubts that. The question is what to do about it. I wrote a column this week that suggested that for exchanges without an insurer, Medicare should be made available. That would give a public option then to people who don't have any way to get insurance. But there may be other ways to do it. Claire McCaskill suggested the D.C. exchange for those in Missouri who can't find insurance. There are ways to fix this. There is not the political will to do so.
Now, this week, an Iraq war veteran by the name of Joe McConnell announces he is running for Kevin Yoder's seat in Kansas. Jay Seide ran against Yoder last year, is also getting ready to launch a second campaign. Does this decision by Blue Cross take the wind out of the sails of these candidates who are making health care a big part of their campaign, Steve?
You know, I don't think so. I think the debate over national health care is going to continue unabated for years to come here, Nick. So this entry of this candidate only fuels that fire going forward.
A huge week in the life of our universities on both sides of state line following a PR black eye and now a massive drop in enrollment. MU announces a new leader this week. Alexander Cartwright, the former provost at the State University of New York, is picked as chancellor at the Columbia campus. Meanwhile, KU also naming a new chancellor. Doug Gerard, who currently leads the University of Kansas Medical Center, succeeds Bernadette Gray Little, who's retiring. Meanwhile, the leader of Kansas City's hometown university, UMKC, announcing his departure. Leo Morton is retiring after 9 years as chancellor. And all these stories, by the way, happening in a 48-hour window. Just a news coincidence, or is there something of brewing here in Kansas and Missouri that we need to be aware of, Steve?
You know, something's brewing, and I should point out that I teach at UMKC, Nick, but having said that, state support for public universities in both our two states is collapsing. Dramatic cuts in the state legislatures in both states. Who in their right minds would want to lead one of these institutions at a time when the state that supports you is walking away? Very tough jobs for these people going forward.
What was the biggest story of all those three for you, Barbara?
For me, it was Leo Morton leaving because, well, he's been there 10 years. He brought stability to the, you know, that position. You know, before that, they'd had quite a bit of turnover over the years. He's kind of an institution there now. So to me, that's the biggest story.
How about for you, Dave?
Well, I think that the new MU chancellor is important, but I think Steve's right. There's a broader story at work. Part of it is the reduced support from state legislators toward higher education. But the other part is higher education itself is changing dramatically. And the idea of sort of brick and mortar, Ivy League, go to school for 4 years, live in a dormitory model is under pressure, in part because tuition is becoming so high, even at state universities, very difficult for, you know, sort of middle class families to afford it. And then the benefits of a college degree, a bachelor degree, at least in some areas of industry and areas of pursuit, is also under some pressure. It's a hell of a time to be running a college or a university in America.
Yeah, it really is. But just to address this declining state support, I think that's a death wish by the legislatures. You need really good universities if you're going to keep good people here, draw good people here, have a vibrant economy, and the kinds of jobs that you want to come into your state. This constant eroding of support is foolish.
But if you have to cut back, though, isn't it easier to cut higher education than other aspects of state government, Steve?
Well, I guess because, you know, the culture in the legislatures toward higher education has changed so dramatically, Nick, and I've mentioned this on this show before. When I first started in Topeka and Jeff City in the late 80s, higher education was revered, highly respected. Today, it's seen as a playhouse for the elites and rich kids to go off and play for 4 years, which is, as Barbara points out, simply not the case. The financial pressure is enormous these days. It's not only state support being cut. That shooting in Olathe a few months ago has scared off scores of international students who come to UMKC, who come to Missouri. That's become another bullet in this gun, if you will. Bad analogy. What's going on here?
While there's been lots of comings and goings in our area universities, another round of news stories about the possibility of impending departure of Kansas Governor Sam Brownback. This time, it's claimed Brownback may be chosen by President Trump as envoy for religious freedom. First of all, I wasn't aware that there was a position called Ambassador for International Religious Freedom. Is there a new post?
No, it's been around for a while, but it is just another in a long string of stories about Sam Brownback leaving Kansas, which remain unconfirmed by the man himself. We've talked about that on this show. Perhaps we should just wait for something to happen. I am told that whatever happens, if he were to be asked to leave, he would not do so until the end of this very contentious session down in Topeka, that he'd want to be around at the end. Why, I don't know, but that's what we're told is his posture toward these other jobs.
Because they have big issues to look at, including school finance and budget issues, and yet the legislators quit for the weekend, and they're not coming back until Tuesday, Steve.
Yeah, and, you know, still lots of big issues on the table, Nick. School finances, taxes, the budget, they haven't resolved any of those things. In fairness, tough stuff. big, meaty, difficult issues. Having said that, time is running out. July 1st is when they have to have a new school finance formula done and a state budget. The clock's ticking here.
Now, for equity purposes, we should point out that there is a special session going on right now in Missouri to tackle jobs, specifically incentives to try and land a steel plant and an aluminum smelter to southeast Missouri. And happy with the lack of progress, Governor Greitens headed to southeast Missouri to rally public support.
A lot of people get up to that state capitol, and something happens and they forget about the people who sent them. For too long, we had too many politicians who ignored the jobs crisis here. And you ask yourself why? Well, didn't affect them. Didn't affect their pay.
OK, the governor offering a less than flattering portrait of state lawmakers. How are the governor's tactics working? Is he getting his way, or is it possible he'll come out of this special session empty-handed, Barbara?
Well, he's going to get his way one way or the other, because if the legislature doesn't pass this jobs bill, he's going to go on about the corrupt career politicians don't care about you. And if they pass the jobs bill, look what I did. I got the corrupt career. I even got the corrupt career politicians to pass my bill. So he
can't lose then. Right. Is that right, Steve?
Yeah, you know, in my experience, you know, the first statement I see from Eric Greitens that doesn't talk about career politicians will be the first.
Well, just quickly, he gave the legislators problems for wanting to be on vacation rather than come back for the special session. They all have other jobs. Eric Greitens is the guy who stays in Jeff City. He has a full-time job with the state. This idea that he isn't a career politician is not right. I almost said something very brutal. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And this bill that was being considered was seen by some as not just a jobs bill, but as a
political payoff.
A payoff to Ameren, which is an electricity generating firm, which is a big donor to Eric Greitens. So the idea that he's perfectly clean in this deal is just ridiculous. And I think the public will eventually figure that out if this kind of thing continues.
As we're taping this, Nick, the state Senate is debating this jobs bill down in Jeff City, and we'll know shortly whether Eric Greitens can claim a big win by bringing these lawmakers back and making them go to work again, or whether he's embarrassed with a big loss here.
Today, the Schlitterbahn Water Park reopens for the summer, 9 months after a 10-year-old boy died on its biggest attraction, the Verrückt. Park officials were hoping to dismantle the water slide before the park opened, but the Kansas Attorney General has blocked that from happening. Derek Schmidt says his office continues to look into whether the August death of Caleb Schwab warrants criminal charges, a declaration that forestalls Schlitterbahn from tearing down the structure. Steve, after 9 months, what is left to investigate?
Well, we don't know. You know, the Schlitterbahn folks say that they feel like this investigation's been taking quite a while, and you do wonder what there is to look at. And to be clear, what they're looking at is whether the facts around what happened with the death of Caleb Schwab support any kind of criminal charges. And the assumption would be then that, you know, they're looking into, was there some kind of negligence or some kind of indication that maybe the park's operator should have known that that guests on this ride would have been in danger prior to Caleb Schwab's death. And so that's the presumption of what they're looking into. Why it's taking so long, hard to say. The park does really want to get this thing down. I mean, it is a symbol of a symbol they would rather not have, and I think the community would rather not have.
And you say it's hurting their business. They haven't been able to advertise because they're trying to remove themselves from the headlines. But you said in a story this week it was going to take a month, even if they had the opportunity to dismantle this ride. It would take them a month to do so.
Well, a month if the park was closed and they didn't have to deal with guests being around. I mean, they're going to have to bring in some heavy machinery and equipment to take this thing down piece by piece. This isn't a demolition project in the traditional sense, and so if they do get the go-ahead sometime this summer, presumably they would want to start work on it. But they've made it clear to me that, you know, with guests around, they would have to look at alternatives like doing it at night when the park closes for the day, things like that.
Now, the state legislature in Kansas voted this year and had the governor sign a measure that boosted amusement park regulations as a result of this death. And yet we hear this week, Steve Kraske, that they are delaying that now, and that might take another year before that goes into effect. Why?
It's just unbelievable. I guess the argument is that the current operators of carnivals and fairs around Kansas haven't had time to adjust to the new rules the legislature legislature has implemented here. So I guess what's being contemplated is allowing these operators to operate perhaps dangerously for another summer until they have time to get their act together when it comes to safety standards. The Star has editorialized vigorously that this would be a huge mistake, and of course I agree.
Yeah, there was just to complete the story, a young toddler was electrocuted in Wichita over the last 10 days, couple of weeks. You know, these operators have some responsibility to protect the safety of the customers that come here. The state legislature stepped up. Any delay, we think, would be ill-advised, to say the least.
And finally this week, move over Sly James. Kansas City Councilman Jermaine Reed announcing his bid for mayor of Kansas City.
I wouldn't be here today if this community did not invest in me. That's why I'm running for mayor. If we continue to invest in each other, I know there's no limit to how far that we can go.
Reed is the second council member to declare his candidacy. Scott Taylor has already launched his campaign, but this election isn't until 2019. Why so early, Barbara?
Can't get started too early, I guess. I think it's about fundraising, and you know, Mayor James kind of set the model for that. He started raising money, and you know, to raise money, you have to say, "Hey, I'm running for mayor." So I think that's
Sly
what it's
James
about.
can't run again.
Yeah.
But what does Jermaine Reed have to offer that no one else in Kansas City can provide as mayor of Kansas City, Steve?
Well, he's going to campaign on, I suspect, on some of his efforts to bring 18th and Vine, which has been a troubled development town. He's spearheaded some efforts to try and bring that area to life, for instance. And you know, he ran for a second term as a city council member in a crowded primary field, and he won decisively. So he's the second council member to announce, as you said, and I suspect there will be more. You know, Scott Taylor definitely got the edge by announcing early. He has soaked up a lot of financial contributions.
He's in the vanguard with all the money, Steve.
Yes, Jermaine Reed is 32. He's worked hard on minimum wage, but let's just keep in mind, Nick, there are going to be about 246 candidates for mayor for an open seat once Sly James is done.
Which means that Burns and Mac is going to be very busy raising money for all those candidates.
Alrighty, that is our weekend review. Our thanks to our news reviewers from the Kansas City Star, Steve Vockrodt and Dave Helling, from KCUR-FM, Mr. Up-to-Date Steve Kraske, weekdays 11 to noon on Kansas City's NPR affiliate, and Barbara Shelley reporting for KCUR and The Pitch. I'm Nick Haynes. From all of us here at KCPT, have a Memorial Day weekend very safely. Join me and the KCP team Sunday night at 8 for Celebration at the Station. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.